is already out, and we can see the Protoss units are in a rough spot. The Zerg player is not going to be able to get away from those. And they all latch on, and it's
that Mothership Core's ability, and it looks like, he entombs all of the mineral field. That is one of the big numbers. He's abducting, pulling tanks away from the front lines. There's the Ultralisk charge underneath the ground, allowing them to advance forward, and we see an excellent
he's got
show.
Blue Flame there as well, just flying through those Zealous siege tanks, trying to do what they can. Siege mode on your tanks. And now we can actually see the Reaper. It's looking like he's trying to bait out the Queens. The Queens are getting just a little too close. And now, once again, we have the Hydras again going to finish off the Nexus as we see a
range upgrade. It is firing from so far away.
His saving grace as he gets into any of these engagements.
He
gets off a nice shot.
Will he blink? Yes, he does. He manages to pick off those Vikings.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching Gfinity here, where we've got the final matchup for this evening. It's going to be a TVT. Empire's Cass is going to be taking on Acer's MMA. This could end up being really sick. Of course, Cass, known for a very, very solid style. MMA thoroughly enjoys his multitasking and aggression. MMA overextends even slightly. Cass gets the lead. Cass makes even one slip up in his normally rock solid defense. It's going to be those small moments that dictate this series. It's not going to be a slow grind. It's going to be a chink in the armor that widens into a chasm really quickly. It's going to be fun.
It should. It's going to be one of those things where they're each going to posture very heavily, I think, as well. Obviously, it's the TVT, so it's going to be a lot about that. But of course, posturing is when you kind of like, just have a nice stance outside your opponent, you have a good position in or something like that, and you try to force him to do something he doesn't want to do, or you force him to make a mistake, and you capitalize on that. But the game is nearly ready to go. Are we jumping into it?
Yeah, we will be in just a second, but first, Gfinity's competition for the winner of the Heart of the Swarm Collector's Edition. Congratulations to the winner, who I believe was picked on Facebook, entirely at random. And your name should be appearing on the screen any minute now. So if your name happens to be Derek and you are watching, congratulations. You've won that Heart of the Swarm Collector's Edition, and we will be getting in touch to let you know the details for that shortly. So well done. Of course, lots of cool prizes, lots of stuff to be giving away. And also, don't forget, this is all about the Starcraft and the tournament as well. We have a Starcraft Open tournament every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. UK time. You can go ahead and sign up for free at gfinity.net. And it's $500 every week. It's free to enter, entirely possible. You could try and bag yourself a little bit of cash and show some great StarCraft games on the way as well. Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. is the start time for that. I think that goes up to the round of 32. And then Wednesday at 6 p.m. is when we see the round of 16 onwards, which, by the way, I really like, because if you have a cup, frankly, that's 256 players long, you just end up playing for something like 6 hours straight if you end up getting to the semis or the final, and you're just so tired by the end of it. I love the fact that it's split up between 2 days. But enough about that, ladies and gentlemen, because we have a game to be bringing you here. The first map is going to be Frost and Spawning in the bottom right-hand corner. As the Red Terran player representing Team Empire, we have Kaz.
And his opponent, spawning all the way at the top right, playing for Team Acer. He is actually in Europe at the moment. It is, of course, going to be Acer's MMA as the blue Terran player. It is a TVT here on Frost, a map that's pretty popular when it comes to, when you have a veto system. This is always kind of the one that's left up. It's a solid map, and as we said earlier, it's a 4-play map, so taking risks and stuff like that can pay off very, very well, because of course if you scout your opponent later and you don't see what they're doing, and
if your name is 4GG,
and you don't see the risk that they take and it pays off for them, you're going to be a little bit behind. And then of course there are other mind games that come into that, where of course it's a 4-player map. My opponent's obviously going to play greedy because he doesn't know where I am, so I'm going to cheese him.
Well, let's talk a little bit about mind games and that aggression for just a second, because over in MMA's part of the map, we can see that gas has actually been taken first before the barracks has gone down. So MMA is going to have enough gas mined by the time his barracks finishes to immediately plunk down that factory. He's going to be able to tech up really, really quickly. And for that reason, of course, this indicates that he is likely to go for some very, very heavy sort of early game aggression potential timing here against Cass. Now, of course, he hasn't scouted anywhere close to where his opponent is yet. It's not like this is something that's going to hit the 4-minute mark or something like that, but he's preparing the tech so that when he knows where Cass is, he can hit really hard.
I know. You say that, we'll see like a reactor drop onto the racks, and it'll be
It's
like
true.
double repo or something really fast.
It's going to happen.
But with this type of gas, of course, you have 100 gas immediately, like you said. So the factory's normally immediately put down, and then of course it's normally going to be something like maybe a double factory, a blue flame Hellion build, or it could be something like, it's normally going to be cloak banshees. But we'll have to wait and see if the second gas is getting added
there
on.
goes the factory. My heart skips a beat as I wait for the reactor to just like cast a curse its way onto the map, but it is going to be the factory there. And Cass, in the meantime, well, he's just playing it nice and chilled out at the moment. He's got his one gas, continuing to make SCVs, and will be considering grabbing that command center very shortly indeed. There goes the reactor on Cass's side of the field, and Cass has successfully seen that MMA hasn't spawned in horizontal positions, so shortly he's just going to verify that second spawn location as well. But if he scouts the top left first, which I'm pretty sure he's going to do, yes, he'll know where his opponent is, but no, he won't know what he's doing, and MMA already starting his starport at the 4-minute mark.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be a Hellion drop of some sort. He hasn't gotten the second gas.
Marine Hellion medevac, man.
Yeah, man, it can do some really good damage, and of course, sometimes you never know what type of timing he wants to go for. He could wait until the expansion goes down. The expansion is in production for Cass, so of course he can do that. And of course, you normally might drop like Marines into the main, and then the Hellions run into the natural to of course get that damage done.
All right, so this play coming out here from MMA, guys, is very aggressive early game build. You're able to get those medevacs in nice and early. They give you high ground vision over the cliffs. Yes, of course, they heal your Marines as well, but they also pick them up and get them there quickly. Marines take a lot longer to move out across the map than Hellions, so the idea is you run your Hellions over and the Marines get picked up in a medevac, and you just can hit a little bit sweeter on that timing should you so choose. And, of course, it's disadvantaged this player if you're not able to get a lot of damage done with it, simply because you've taken that gas early on, you've invested in this tech so early, you're going to be using less resource in... Ooh, did that medevac get spotted there? A single Hellion has been seen, and this SCV is going to try and go up the ramp, and we need to see micro... Yes, okay, that SCV does go down, and there are two Hellions and the medevac now moving out towards Cass's main. He's got to be suspicious.
He's got to be very careful. Some damage was spotted, some dealt onto the Hellion, and of course he does know it's coming, and of course he saw the main base, so he knew that this was coming. SCVs do get pulled off, and I like the low ground position from the Hellions, but Cass is playing this intelligently, not running into that corner. He does burrow the Widow Mines in. Ooh, a Hellion.
Excellent.
Was that a Hellion? No, yeah, it was a
Yeah,
Hellion.
that was a Hellion that just went. Excellent defense coming out of there from Cass, spotting that MMA had the Hellions on the low ground, and therefore just moved his Marines away from the cliff and saying, look, I'm going to take your Marines on straight up, because even though you've got that medevac, you don't have nearly as many Marines as I do, mate, and I'm going to burrow a Widow Mine. You don't want to be wasting a scan on this. You've used all your resources to build units and try and do something with this attack, and so far, I'm just doing great. A Widow Mine not quite getting there early enough to stop that medevac coming in the back. Is it going to matter too much, though? It doesn't look like it.
Well, get on the way out, and I think it will, or at least the medevac will be scared for, down here for a little bit. Is there a... okay, there's a Viking. I was about to say, is there one about to pop, and there it is. So this will get cleaned up, and Cass is in a good position. He did lose 5 workers there, actually 6 in total now, but of course he had his command center so much faster. He's still down by 3 workers, but he's going to catch up no problems. Of course, double meals also supplement his income, and he is kind of following this up to the same kind of funkiness, because we do have Cloak Banshee in production for both players.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting indeed. So both players following it up with a bit of aggression here. Cass saying, actually, I've just cleaned up your medevac. I've stopped all of your units that can attack me. I managed to corner it. I even got the Viking out to make sure there's nothing you could do. Cass being very defensive, but really effective at it as well. And so far, he's just completely shut MMA down. He's ahead by 6 supply, but here we go.
A little bit of Hellion fighting Hellion, but unfortunately for that was a really bad that was a bad positioning for Cass there. Because as he run up the ramp there, he lined them up, and then the 2 extra Hellions popped for MMA, and they got a shot on all 4 Hellions in one slice. So a lot of damage dealt there. So he lost like more Hellions than MMA, even though he had more and more health on them. But here comes a Banshee that does get picked off by that Viking, and it does waste the scan, which is nice. The Banshee doing damage for Kaz, though, and GG gets called there as MMA can't defend that Banshee play.
Yeah, that's actually pretty quick as well. And guys, let me explain what happened just there. We've obviously saw a position where, hang on a second, Cass killed a Banshee. Why would MMA be GGing out at that point if you might not have seen quite so much before, haven't seen these guys play before? And the reason being is that the opening MMA has chosen was designed to do a lot of early game damage. He got that medevac out so early. He wanted to go in with the Hellions and absolutely mop the floor with the Marines so that his own Marines could go and clean up shop. Cass completely denied that. He didn't just stop the attack, he squashed it into the ground, and the medevac didn't even survive. So when MMA comes up with the follow-up, he says, right, I'm going to have to do some damage now with these cloaked Banshees. I almost said cloaked Vikings. That would be amazing.
That would be OP.
So these cloaked battle cruisers. But anyway, if you're not going to be able to get... Well, Protosses can have that. The power
to an
of
extent,
Protoss.
yeah, we can.
If I can't get damage done with these cloaked Banshees and I'm already behind, then I'm going to get so far behind that actually this is going to be really difficult. And for that reason, as soon as he saw the cloaked Banshee play was completely shut down, he went, okay, this is too much of an advantage now. I'm going to use my energy and channel it into the next game rather than try and draw this one out.
Yeah, now, and at the same time, he killed his opponent's Banshee, obviously, with the tech as well. The investment into Cloak, it's not a good investment there.
Yeah.
And then his own was, it was uncontested in the skies. Like, I don't even think MMA had a Viking. I don't think he was anticipating it, let alone it had Cloak as well, so that's going to be wasted meals and scans. And, economic damage was being dealt. Like you said, he didn't get the damage done that he needed to justify that opening.
Exactly. Cass was just way too efficient in the defense there, and unfortunately for him, MMA isn't going to be able to survive that, so he's going to go straight into game number 2 here. Now the map, interestingly, is Habitation Station, chosen by MMA here. So I wonder what the reason for that could be. Not normally a map that we really see at the top of players' wish lists, and that leads me to believe that maybe he's looking to mix things up a little bit here.
Yeah. Did you see that image that, what was it, TLO tweeted about the unit deaths? I don't know if it was from like SC2 Gears or something, but he tweeted an image of the hotspots of where units die.
Okay, yeah.
And it's literally just the top aisle, and that's it. Just like a red like zigzag, like a W, and that's it for this map. And to be fair, that looks about right, actually.
W of death right there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, let's see what these players are going to end up coming up with, guys. We are going to be spawning on Habitation Station here for game number 2. We're over in the top left position, representing Team Empire, currently a game up. Will he be able to defeat his arguably more illustrious Korean opponent? Representing Empire, it's Cass.
Oh, there we are. I thought you were going to say it a bit earlier. And of course his opponent spawning up at the top right on this 2-player map, playing for Team Acer, has to win this to of course stay in it. It is going to be Acer MMA, and he's the red Terran player.
Alright, so you pick Habitation Station after going down 1-0 in a TVT.
That's a 2-player map.
What? I mean, we could just be reading into this too much. He's just going to play a normal macro game. But if he really wanted to do that, there are other maps he could have picked. Habitation Station. Is there a reason for this in particular? And, well, MMA is going to be going for that gas first.
Yeah, well, realistically, looking at the last map and, the build from the last map and looking at this map, it should do better. It's easier to kind of get into the main unscouted because, there's nothing there. It's just dead space. Yeah. And then, of course, the Hellions can run into the net a bit easier. And, yeah, I think, if he goes for the same build, it has a higher probability of doing more damage.
Well, both players are starting to go aggressive here as we have both sides this time going for that gas first, saying, actually, you know what, I'm in favor of this more aggressive build. And I think the reason for that is twofold. The first is you're a 2-player map where you're close by air. So no matter how you put it, Banshees and Medevacs are stronger early game than they would be on maps where you have to go across ground. That much is intuitive. Also, it's a map that, to be honest, we just don't see players pick that often.
No.
So, when uncertain, rather err on the side of caution by having more units than necessarily go for some big, long, drawn-out macro play and then to find out, oh, my opponent had this really aggressive strategy for this slightly unusual map. It looks like I've just lost here. So both players going for early immigration. MMA being so diligent in scouting, making sure Cass hasn't got a proxy out anywhere in the map.
Ooh.
And interesting.
Ooh. Yeah, well, this should mean Cloak Banshee for, of course, Cass. MMA looks like he still wants to do the second build, or the same build, but as I say that, of course, the gas does go down. So, of course, this is the gas time in where, of course, you can, you need that gas to get the Cloak Banshee out.
Exactly. Someone told these guys, hey, you know what? On Habitation Station, guys, I heard Banshees were good.
Yeah.
And basically, to within a couple of seconds of each other, these guys are going to be mirroring each other's builds. There goes the barracks. And there goes the starport, immediately beginning almost to the second for both players. For what it's worth, Cass is approximately half a second faster building that starport. Of course, not going to make a difference in the outcome of the game, but both players having exactly the same idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Cass does have like an extra 30 gas, which isn't a big deal, but it could mean something. We'll have to wait and see how good MMA's timings are, because if Cass dots his first, his cloak, and then MMA waits for about 5 seconds to earn that 30 gas, that's where advantages can be earned.
Yeah, that's right. It could be a couple extra workers killed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's that means it gets out that bit faster before scan comes in or something like that.
Yeah, but then you drop a mule and you're like, haha, whatever. Don't worry about it. Oh wait, they both got them. Okay, it's not overpowered anymore. Don't worry. We'll have more Banshees, and oh wow, this is something I haven't actually seen for a while.
Ooh.
In MMA's base. Really cool. We saw a couple of players in GSL do this in the main base, which is when the mule's about to die, you send it away from his minerals just before it dies to make sure you just conserve every last bit. Now, admittedly, given how aggressive these players are, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how likely it is that the main's necessarily going to get mined out. But just a cool little move there. And speaking of cool little moves, Cass with that Widow Mine.
Yeah, he's trying to anticipate something. Now, if you have a look, of course, at the starport is rallied upwards, so it's not going to interact with it. Wow, Cass is actually building. Did he build a Banshee? He built a Banshee first, then a Raven. So he's gonna, he doesn't have to wait. Wow, and MMA actually. So they are going to legit same builds here. And of course, this saves some scans, as of course the Ravens do, of course, detect. Now we do need a, the Viking follow up there as well. So it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, both players.
Do you think Cass is gonna try and bait the units into that Widow Mine like a Viking?
It's possible, but the thing is, he hasn't got a Widow Mine at home at the moment. And once, once MMA chooses the cloak, for example, that could be a little bit of a problem. There we go. There goes the cloak, and all of a sudden, Cass is having a little bit of a difficult time microing at home. But there's another cloak Banshee in the base of MMA. Both players going out absolutely hammer and tongs. We're taking a look at. We're taking a look over here in the base of Cass. Let's go ahead and take a look. I think we can get a picture-in-picture here and take a look at what's going on over here in MMA's base as well. The Banshee just flying away. The Raven and the Marines here just on the very edge of the base, wanting to pick it off as much as possible. Both sides of the map suffering damage. If we take a look at the numbers of workers lost, it's 6 versus 5. So really aggressive, but also not catastrophic levels of damage being done by both sides here.
Yeah. Now, the fact that Cass does have his still alive is a big deal because, of course, it can come back later. That's a thorn in MMA's side that he will have to clear up.
All right.
Whereas Cass did kill his opponents.
Yep, and that was pretty cool, actually, seeing both sides of the map at once there. But then again, the players were doing exactly the same thing. And we can see Cass now. He's just going to be retreating. And MMA,
trying to sniff him out. He's not going to get it.
Not quite. So close there. But the Banshee will just about be able to sneak away. Now, a couple of differences, though, in how these players are playing it right now. MMA, he's got the command center inside his main base as opposed to at the natural. And, of course, that's going to make it a little bit easier to scout, but at the same time, Cass is dropping his mules there just a little bit faster. If we take a look at income right now, Cass is going to be enjoying a little bit of an advantage, and that's going to increase slightly as he transfers workers and drops that mule a bit earlier, too. He's currently up 62 supply to 51, and he's ahead by 2. No, now 1 only in the worker supply. So, still pretty close.
Yeah, the fact that he has his natural already down there mining, whereas MMA is still morphing in his orbital, gives him a big little bit of efficiency for this moment. So he's going to capitalize on that. The supplies are not that far apart with the 7 difference at the moment, but MMA is a little bit behind. Units overall, we've got 2 tanks v 2 tanks, Marines a little bit in Kaz's favor.
Oh, with the Raven, yeah,
Oh,
great spot as well. Fantastic spot, immediately reacting with that Raven, but just as Cass is going in, and this is slaughter for Cass because he just walked into 2 siege tanks. It's absolute slaughter in favor of our Red Terran player right now. MMA killing so many units, manages to get a siege tank picked off for his troubles, but that was entirely worth it. MMA in seeing that Widow Mine, it was actually really unfortunate because he saw the Widow Mine and started sieging up. Oh, and as soon as he sieged up, Cass just casually walks into view. It's possibly the most unlucky timing you could get, and Cass having to rethink his timings here.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if Kaz saw that and he thought, oh, he's going to run into my Widow Mine. He got a bit hyped and he's like, I'm going to go for it. I don't know if that actually just happened.
The opposite, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. I think
he saw the Widow Mine and, oh, he sieged up. So,
and then he run into it.
Yeah, exactly. So really unfortunate for him there. We have 2 Vikings and a Raven patrolling the north side of MMA's base. So really a contrast in what he's doing with the style we saw in the last game. He's just being ultra defensive here, not wanting to let a defensive blunder ruin this game for him. And the Banshee is going to get picked off, but more workers have been killed for Cass. And I think he enjoys now a decent economic advantage.
Yeah, he's got, wow, a 10 worker lead. That Banshee got 16 kills, which is pretty impressive. Yeah, when you look at the fact that they went for the same open end, you know, that shows you a clear difference between these 2 players. You know, that doesn't mean that Kaz is the better player. It just means that, you know, he's executed it better for this.
Well, he certainly is playing it really well tonight.
Yeah, and even with that, you know, the extra units that were picked off outside MMA's natural, Kaz still has a nice advantage of 20 supply.
I think a great story for this series would be to say MMA started off the series wanting to be ultra aggressive, wasn't quite able to pull it off. Oh, and wow, here we go. Auto turrets actually to deflect the siege there. He's got more Marines, but look at the splash damage from the siege tanks. Oh my goodness, that is huge. The tanks, though, are unsieged. They do a little bit more DPS that way, and he is going to be able to clear this defensive line of Cass here. Cass still at 89 supply versus 71 of MMA. Another siege tank on the high ground. I think this might be a little bit too much for MMA to handle right now, but he's going to be sieging up himself, and all these Marines from Cass, they're going to be forfeit as well. 64 supply versus 80. But MMA, he's making ground, but that's because Cass, in the meantime, just got auto turret dropped inside MMA's base as well, which is why the worker count still shows a 12 supply lead for Cass.
Yeah, he didn't actually kill any workers there, I don't believe. But of course, you know, he done infrastructure damage. He killed units with that, and you know,
and the reinforcing units were pulled back into the base as opposed to supporting the army. I think that was the big thing.
Yeah,
as well.
that's a really big thing to point out there as well. Because he was so close to nearly breaking Cass. There was one more tank. He also suicided his Raven, which is a bit unfortunate because that's such an expensive unit and so useful for like stalemate situations or something. You know, a tank v tank, or you drop the turret. Great move as well to go for that.
Definitely. So MMA at the moment. I mean, hello. This is going to be a wow, very aggressive coming out here from Cass, basically going for a doom drop into the main base of MMA.
This is near game ending. I don't know if MMA spotted that, but he just picks up all these units and drops them back into his main base. Okay. So I think he is, maybe. He's leaving all the units out here. Kaz is going to come in. There is the tank right there, which he could siege up.
Yeah, he's going to siege up straight away, and MMA might decide to move in without sieging up. Here we go. Massive engagement going on right now. The tanks are sieged on both sides. So much damage being done. The Vikings doing a good job of picking apart the medevacs, actually. All the medevacs for Cass are still alive, but his Marines are effectively gone. SCV's coming off the line here to try and kill off the tanks. There are no Marines to buffer them. Is he going to pick that tank up? No.
No. It was sieged.
That was slightly anticlimactic.
Yeah.
I was waiting. I was like, it's going to be picked up. Hot pickup, and no, he can just kind of sit there and die. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's not that important.
He saved all the medevacs, though, and that's a decent amount of gas that Cass is not going to have to spend again. And his Vikings, during that engagement, picked off all the medevacs from MMA. So MMA, at the moment, is going to have to use a lot more gas to get back into the same position he was in compared to Cass. And I think that might end up being really important in the next engagement.
Yeah, Cass isn't actually getting stim either. I'm not going insane, am I? I can't see stim in the upgrade. No, that's units. That's why. There we are. I'm pressing. Yeah, just pressing the wrong button.
Yep, there we go. He
does have stim.
So that's nice. That could be game ending.
Yeah, there's still about 40 seconds. I thought that maybe he might have killed it, but there is another big drop up here. 2 tanks.
Oh, he's dropping into already sieged defensive tanks from MMA, though, so this one isn't going to work nearly as well. MMA says, look, mate, you've done your damage. I know I'm a bit behind here, but lightning doesn't strike twice.
No, and stim is 15 seconds off a drop going into the main base. The SCVs are not, well, if Kaz reacts, then not as many are going to get killed because, of course, the Marines are not fast enough to chase them down. But Kaz does react, pulls the units back on MMA. What?
Wow.
that was not meant to happen.
No, a little bit mistimed there, unfortunately, from MMA. He does lose that medevac, and in the meantime, he's now sending a Viking of his own to pick off some of the medevacs from Cass, basically trying to repay a little bit of the medicine that he was fed earlier. I like that idea. One of those medevacs very low on health. The Viking thinking about picking it off, thinking about swooping in, might actually be able to, but in the meantime, MMA moving out across the map with the rest of his army, and he's currently still down 15 supply, but I have to say, the last couple of engagements, MMA's micro has been pretty good, and here we go.
And here comes the engagement. There are more tanks for MMA, so if he gets him into a better position, that's a lot of splash damage. But that stem, man, there's a lot of Marines. They run forward. They should get maybe cleaned up just about, and there's the force pickup. And weirdly enough, they're both taking their gold bases, so this is a massive point of contention right now.
But right now, Cass is mining from the gold base, and MMA is not. And Cass is effectively controlling the middle of the map. That excellent stim in there originally from the Marines are doing so well right now. He's actually not focus firing the tank at the moment. He probably should be doing that. There we go. Manages to do it, and he's got control of the watchtower. And whoever has control of the watchtower right now will have control of who's mining at these gold bases.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, you know, even if you have like low range units, you can still harass these bases from the low ground. With the tank, you have no chance of keeping that if your opponent has the watchtower. And, you know, MMA just lost his lead in tanks now. It's gone back into favor of Kaz. And, of course, tanks are such a big deal because they're so efficient in their fights. And here comes another engagement.
Oh, that's a huge drop, actually. MMA can't counter that, even losing a medevac in the process. GG, it's not going to be enough. And Empire Cast, ladies and gentlemen, takes a 2-0 victory off of Acer's MMA. Not a result that a lot of people watching at home would have predicted before the start of the night. But Cass's absolute resolute defensive edge in game number 1, I want to say, I'll go into reasons for it in a bit. We'll talk about it in a bit.
Yeah.
But I genuinely think MMA was a little bit on tilt in game 2 there. Like, his play style was so different. I think Cass really affected him with how game number 1 ended.
I think that actually could be a good call because, you know, it's like, you know, MMA, I can imagine, is not the type of player where he's, you know, he's tilted at the game. He's probably very annoyed at himself for losing that in a sense, or losing it so fast following what he went for, because, you know, he went for like a one base play and then just kind of died afterwards.
So what happened there, ladies and gentlemen, in game number 1, we saw on the first map, Cass really holding that very fast Marine Hellion medevac push coming out of there from MMA. Cass doing a brilliant job at completely holding that off. And then when the Cloak Banshee follow-up didn't work, we saw the GG out. That's basically how game number 1 finished. But what we need to talk about is how that changed the way game number 2 began. Both players initially opening with those gas first builds, getting up to their tech as quickly as possible because it's habitation station and close by air, and Banshees are a pretty good unit. But then we saw both Cass and MMA go ultra defensive. The Banshee followed by the Raven followed by the Viking is something, frankly, you and I would expect Cass to do. And then when we saw MMA do that as well, we were thinking, wow, MMA wants to be aggressive, but then he also remembers how, like, the manner in which he lost the previous game, and he goes, actually, I just want to stay safe against any sort of this stuff as well, because I don't want the same thing to happen again, where if he defends against me, I just automatically lose to the follow-up aggression. And MMA was then placed in a situation where he just started losing a couple more workers, just a little bit of inefficiency here and there, and that really was enough for Cass to just sort of start driving a wedge into his position, because for the longest possible time, Cass was 5 supply ahead, 10 supply ahead, 10, 12, and then it started snowballing to 20, 30.
It got pretty bad, especially with the workers, because Cass, like I said during the game, like, Cass done so much more damage with his Banshee v MMAs, and they went for the legitimate same opening, exactly everything was perfect apart from a couple of seconds. What I've found interesting was, it just kind of slipped my mind there. I was about to say it. Oh, damn it! I just totally forgot. But I did love the opening. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. Like at the start of the game, we were like, "Oh, okay, he's gone for a habitation station. What type of special build?" Like we didn't talk about Cloak Banshee because that's kind of obvious.
Yeah, sure.
We were like, "Okay, it's close by air. They're right below. Cloak Banshee, of course, is a great build." But what else is he gonna do? You know, and you know, he didn't really do anything else. They went for the exact same build, which is, you know, what happened.
I think I think once you get behind in that economic edge going into the mid game there, where Cass was in a position where he was sort of 10 supply up and then 20 supply up, the way it snowballs isn't actually that you have a better economy and you win the game. Remember that engagement in the middle as well, where Cass just got a nicer engagement. He had 2 Vikings during that Doom drop, and he killed off all the medevacs of MMA. When he killed off all the medevacs, we mentioned on air that MMA was going to need a lot more gas to replenish this army. At the end of that game, about 10 seconds before the GG, you guys didn't see it because I checked out on the non-observing PC. We took a look at the work account. It was equal.
Yeah.
And the reason the work account was equal is because MMA recognized, hang on a second, I need to get back into the game and sort of get my workers up here.
Yeah.
He starts building his workers,
He
and
went
in the
insane.
meantime, Cass is going, well, hang on a second, I've got more medevacs than you from before. I can start building more tanks, my army can get larger, and while you're busy getting up to the same economic level that I'm at, I'm going to use that gold base, I'm going to use that economic advantage I had earlier in the game and get a bigger army than you. That 40 supply difference you saw at the end of the game, none of that was in workers. It was all in army from that earlier position where those Vikings killed off those medevacs. And that's how you get basically a TVT snowballing. So I thought it was really instructive in that way.
It does. And, you know, before we jumped into the series, like you said, you know, one of the players is going to get an advantage here. He's going to make a little bit of a mistake, and the other player is going to have that advantage. And we did see it swing there. And a big idea of how to figure out if someone's ahead is kind of the tank numbers. The tank is a good indicator of what's going on with that game.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that's actually going to be it for night number 1 here at Gfinity. This is the Starcraft 2 Elite Division. We've had some pretty amazing games this evening, and of course we mustn't forget, can't actually be done without the lovely support of the folks here at Gfinity. But before I go into telling you guys why these guys are so cool, also a massive shout out to the admins, courtesy of Connecting Slovenia, who have done a tremendous job this evening. They've been contacting the players, ensuring we get into lobbies, ensuring we get the correct maps, doing the vetoes and all of that. And unlike at a face-to-face tournament where this is online, it's actually significantly more difficult at times to sort of pin people down, get the vetoes down properly, explain things when you're not in person. So massive thank you to the administrative staff here at the tournament for their support. This has only been week 1. There are 5 weeks incoming, guys. We have 6 top-notch players here in this tournament. You've seen them play this evening. They're all going to be playing each other in an all-play-all format. The points are going to be